We cannot remain silent or look away from the devastation, the bombings, including of hospitals, schools, and places of refuge. Madam President, Mr. United Nations Secretary General, heads of state and government, ambassadors, authorities, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. I appear before you today as representatives of the member states of the United Nations in this year which marks the 80th anniversary of the organization's founding. This is a timely opportunity to reflect on the present, the past, and the future of this universal organization and on its contribution to peace, stability, and development in a time of extreme complexity. Ours is a world that is fast-paced and unrestrained, one that frequently brings us to the brink, one in which there are voices that continue to proclaim the end of multilateralism and the obsolescence and inefficacy of the United Nations. It is said that this is the result of replacing dialogue and cooperation with competition, rivalry, and extreme tension. This is not the world we're heading towards, we hear. Rather, it is the world in which we are already immersed. In response to this sense of disintegration, we must acknowledge that times have indeed changed and we need to adapt, even anticipate, without retreating into idealism, complacency, or short-sightedness. But it is precisely at this time of uncertainty that we must read the signs of our time clearly to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past and entering irreversible spirals. We are aided in this by memory, which is the most valuable tool that any generation possesses to confront its challenges. The memory of the 20th century calls to us each time that we gather in this General Assembly. It reminds us why this House of the International Community was created, under which circumstances it was born, and which dark chapters of history it sought to close definitively. Let us hear in this hall once more the opening words of the preamble to the Charter of the United Nations. They begin, "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war." Which of the great ideals enshrined therein, peace, dignity, equality, justice, progress, has ceased to be relevant or to represent an ethical imperative? On which of these paths have we advanced sufficiently over these 8 decades to be able to declare that the journey of multilateralism and cooperation is complete? The silence in response to these questions is the clearest evidence that the United Nations is not only useful, it is indispensable and irreplaceable. Believing in the United Nations is believing firmly in the universality of the principles and values enshrined in its charter and in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is to resist the temptation of diluting them with specifics, relativisms, or exceptions. Because the dignity of the human being is non-negotiable. Believing in the United Nations is also believing in a rules-based world. Rules shape behaviors to which the vast majority of international actors adhere. Even when they are breached, they provide a basis for accountability and enforcement. Rules are the voice of reason used in international relations. They are the best defense against the law of the strongest. A world without rules is uncharted territory. A time without rules is returning to the Middle Ages. The path proposed by the United Nations Charter is fraught with obstacles, and will never be fully completed. That is why the example of those who have been committed to its values is so precious. These are people working under extreme conditions, risking their freedom, their physical integrity, or even their lives, in a world plagued by conflict in all too many regions. We see this in Europe, in Ukraine, where war has been unleashed by Russia's unprovoked and unjustifiable aggression, violating the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Peace in Europe will not be possible without justice and accountability. Spain will continue to support all efforts aimed at achieving a just and lasting peace, grounded in the principles of international law, respect for human rights, and accountability. We also see this in its full severity in the Middle East, in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip. We cannot remain silent or look away from the devastation, the bombings, including of hospitals, schools, and places of refuge. In light of the countless civilian deaths, famine, starvation, the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. To what end? These are abhorrent acts that stand in stark contrast to everything that this forum represents. They offend human conscience and shame the entire international community. Spain is a nation deeply proud of its Sephardic roots. When we speak to the people of Israel, we speak to a people of brothers and sisters, a people who, when they return to Spain, to Córdoba, Toledo, Seville, Barcelona, and so many other places, come home. This was the spirit behind the 2015 law, which was passed with broad consensus, granting Spanish nationality to descendants of Sephardic Jews originally from Spain. It is for this reason, and it is so difficult for us to understand, that we are so pained by the actions of the Israeli government in Gaza. We therefore cry out, we implore, we demand, stop this massacre now. No more deaths in the name of a people that are so wise and ancient, who have suffered so greatly throughout history. Let us be clear. We unequivocally condemn the heinous terrorism of Hamas, especially the brutal massacre of the 7th of October 2023 against the Israeli population, and we recognize Israel's right to self-defense. But with equal strength, we demand that the Israeli government fully uphold international humanitarian law throughout Gaza and the West Bank. We demand that humanitarian aid be delivered without delay, that a ceasefire be established with guarantees, and that all hostages still held by Hamas be released immediately. The international community must shoulder its responsibility to achieve as soon as possible a viable solution that would include the existence of two states, the recognition of the State of Palestine by an increasing number of member states of this organization, to which Spain added its voice this past May, must contribute to achieving a just and definitive regional peace based on the implementation of United Nations resolutions and on the universal recognition of the State of Israel.